In the course of completing one quest in Shadow of the Erdtree, we learn the story of Placidusax's injuries, the dread drake who caused them, the beginning of Dragon Communion, and the origins of the Drake Knights. Thanks to Florisax, the ancient dragon priestess of Dragon Communion, we know that this practice was created in order to hunt Bayle and the drakes he begot with Grail, as revenge for his attack on her lord. The Drake Knights were the first to engage in communion and would spend their lives chasing the strength of dragons, struggling to make it their own. We even fight against one of these warriors who succeeded and was able to become a humanoid dragon man. But it seems not every Drake Knight traces their roots back to Farum Azula. Some are much like us, who pick up communion along the way, discovering this strength without any prior knowledge of its origins. While it seems Eleanor the Violet Bloody Finger may have understood what a Drake Knight truly was, raised in the tradition, the other Drake Knight we can now meet likely did not. This man, covered in rags and dragging his useless legs behind him, probably became a Drake warrior by chance. Today we will tell the story of Egon and his deep-seated hatred for Bayle the Dread, which led his spirit to the top of the jagged peak. Welcome to Elden Lore, our weekly series where we investigate the people, places, and warriors of the Lands Between and the Land of Shadows. Whether you're a longtime subscriber or this is your first time finding the channel, we're happy to have you here. With plenty to explore in the Land of Shadow and threads to connect back to the Lands Between, we hope you'll join us as we tie it all together. We're always happy to explore areas of the lore requested by our audience, so feel free to tell us what you want to know. We also have a Discord where our community of FromSoft fans come together to talk about the lore of this world, our favorite builds, and so much more. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing. It goes a long way in helping us stay relevant in YouTube's algorithm, while we're out here making Shadow of the Erdtree content. But no pressure. As always, your viewership is more than enough. With that said, let's get back to the story of Egon, the broken Drake warrior. As we explore the Land of Shadow, we come to the Pillar Path Waypoint Site of Grace, and after resting, we hear a voice crying out in pain. We follow the cries and come upon a man dressed in rags, who seems to have been through a fierce battle.
The pain. My arms, my legs, each lies a bloody ruin. The pain. The exquisite pain. Bayle! Vile Bayle! Oh, terror incarnate! There is life in me yet! I will soon feast upon your heart! Mark my words! You too shall know fear!
At this point, we have absolutely no context for who either this man or Bayle are. But from his comment about feasting on Bayle's heart, we can reasonably assume this man has met a terrible fate at the hands of a dragon. This assumption is somewhat bolstered as by following the path ahead of him, we're invaded by an ancient dragon man and find our way to the dragon's pit. As we're making our way out of this cave, we do battle with the ancient dragon man again, and find the exit, now faced with Jagged Peak, a mountain inhabited by drakes and dragons that we must now scale. Before starting this climb though, we can meet the Dragon Communion priestess, Florisax, who tells us the story of Bayle the Dread, the one who attacked Dragon Lord Placidusax, leaving him with a grievous injury. From here she explains,
"Since that day, Bayle and his bloodline, the Drakes, have served as sacrifices for Dragon Communion. land-bound warrior. My lord, Placidusax, has shown your kind what must be done. Seek communion. Sate your boundless appetite. Feel the euphoria of a dragon's essence taking root in your meager frame.
So now Egon's cries make sense to us. He cursed Bayle the Dread, the first drake, meaning he's already done battle with this fearsome creature, and lost quite spectacularly, having his legs taken from him and leaving his body a bloodied mess. Moving on from this altar, we do battle with two drakes that seem to be fighting each other. We can let them duke it out for a while, but inevitably we must get involved and fell both of them. Once we do, we hear a familiar voice calling out to us.
What a sight! A warrior true, if ever one there was. A fellow Drake warrior! Egon. Piteous Egon. Do you not remember? Conjure your past, how once you were, when fear was yet foreign to ye.
Watching our battle with these drakes seems to have sparked something in Egon. He tells himself to remember who he was before he feared Bayle, the man he built himself up to be, that we can catch a glimpse of a bit later on. Should we speak to him, he asks a favor of us.
Drake warrior, dear friend, grant me this one wish. Take this finger, my finger, scale the jagged peak, face Bayle the Dread, and when you do, summon me. Summon my soul. My limbs are limbs no more. My heart is twice over filled with fear. But a Drake warrior I remain, and my soul yet lies on the mountain. Proud Drake warrior, I beg of you, scale the jagged peak, face Bayle the Dread, and when you do, summon me. Summon my soul.
What's fascinating about this is that it's the first time we've used someone else's finger to summon them. We can place our own signs with a finger and invade others with a bloody finger, but this is something entirely different. I think, perhaps, the implication is that from a story perspective, we can write Egon's sign for him once we enter Bayle's arena, and use it to summon him, as he realizes there's no way he will make it to the summit on his own. We were already on our way to face Bayle ourselves, so why not bring Egon along for the ride and fulfill his wish? After this encounter, Florisax can actually tell us more about our new compatriot.
Remember that name well. The broken Drake warrior, driven by bottomless hunger and fiery ambition. Precisely what the Dragon Lord envisaged for men who partake in dragon communion. The mad hunger and fierceness of spirit that only flows from those young and short of sight. He rather reminds me of Bayle. In fact, such thoughts are unfathomable to ones as old as we.
She sees Egon and his ambition as not just a trait of the ideal Drake Knight, but a mirror to Bayle himself, though it seems Egon was not always like this. The Drake Knight armor tells us, from birth, Drake Knights speak not a word. They spend their lives pursuing the strength of dragons, for its sublime beauty and inspiration of awe. We can't exactly associate this description of a Drake Knight with Egon, as he clearly knows how to use his voice and express himself. By looking at his armor and weapons, we can paint a picture of who he was before he became a Drake warrior. His armor is described as armor of the broken Drake warrior Egon, from a set comprised of a miscellany of parts. Filthy belongings are attached to this tattered piece of protective wear. The poor scavenger of battlefields found honor through dragon communion. It seems as though Egon was nothing more than a scavenger. His gauntlets and loincloth reference this by telling us they are remnants, stripped from a corpse found in the aftermath of a battle. Much like the vulgar militia, Egon would scour the remains of a battlefield in order to get by. And given what we learned from his armor, it seems as though he once came across the heart of a dragon while pilfering from the dead. After doing so, he must have found his way to an altar of dragon communion, feasted on the heart, possibly guided by Florisax herself, and felt the strength of a dragon flow through his body. It was then he became a Drake warrior, not by birthright, but much like us, by pure chance. Egon's greatbow is a symbol of who this man became once he took the power of a dragon for himself. Weapon of Egon, the broken Drake warrior. A greatbow fashioned from 2 dragon bones bound with coarse rope, covered in gashes left by claws. Imbued with Egon's obsession, enhancing the power of Egon's harpoon. Egon fashioned his very own bow. This is not a weapon lovingly crafted by a smith. This is a weapon cobbled together from the very bones of the creatures it's intended to kill. This warrior did not just take the strength of dragons through communion. He used every piece of them to build up his arsenal, preparing for a battle with Bayle the Dread. Unfortunately, it seems his first attempt at felling the father of drakes ended with his legs destroyed, his arms a bloodied mess, and his soul lost in despair. Upon seeing us do battle with 2 drakes, Egon was reinvigorated. He gave us his furled finger and started preparing for the fight ahead. Luckily for him, there were plenty of materials around to craft his latest weapon, Egon's harpoon. Great arrow that bristles with sharp gravelstone pieces, has an anti-dragon effect. The broken Drake warrior Egon made these one by one in the midst of his agony, so that Bayle the Dread himself would know fear. As we know, sharp gravelstone comes from the scales of ancient dragons, and as such, it can create tools we can use to fell the drakes. Egon's ingenuity gave him the perfect weapon to face Bayle the Dread once again, and he joins us when we reach the Jagged Peak summit. It's at the top of the summit where we face Bayle the Dread alongside our new companion, Egon, the broken Drake warrior, and upon summoning him, he states his business clearly.
Curse you, Bayle! I hereby vow you will rue this day. Behold, a true Drake warrior, and I, Egon, your fears made flesh. Solid of scale you might be, foul dragon, but I will riddle with holes your rotten hide with a hail of harpoons, with every last drop of my being.
This is quite possibly one of the best voice-acted lines I have ever heard in my life. The battle is epic, with Bayle breathing fire and attacking us both with the bones left behind by his tattered wing. He summons spectral ancient dragon wings and rains fire down upon us. All the while our companion lets loose his harpoons, never wavering in his task. Egon has gone from a man completely broken and filled with fear to a warrior, his former self, who feels as though he can topple the mightiest of drakes with the help of our tarnished. He refers to the two of us as Bayle's fears made flesh. I think it's safe to assume Bayle was aware that the ancient dragon started dragon communion as a means of putting him to an end. So I believe this is what Egon is referring to, Bayle's fear of communion come to claim his still beating heart. Through the use of his harpoons, Egon helps us to fell this beast, bringing an end to his greatest foe.
Dread! You shall haunt me no longer!
After completing his mission, his spirit fades away, and we can make our way back down the hill to see if we can celebrate our victory alongside our friend. Unfortunately, this battle with Bayle took everything Egon had left, as when we find him, he's lying dead in the very same spot where he gave us his finger. It turns out by summoning his spirit, we allowed him his final confrontation, at the cost of his life. I believe there's no better outcome here, as if we don't summon him, Egon will still succumb to his injuries by the time we defeat Bayle. So by allowing him to join us, bringing him into the fray, we're at least able to grant his final wish, and he can watch the lifeless body of Bayle the Dread fall at his feet. His mission fulfilled, he can pass on as one of the greatest Drake warriors to ever live, in part, responsible for the defeat of the very Drake the practice was started to kill. It's obvious that the story of Egon and Bayle is meant to be a kind of retelling of Moby Dick. Egon is deeply obsessed with his white whale. Bayle takes Egon's legs, and he swears vengeance against the father of drakes, obsessively clawing his way closer and closer to his prey. The twist here is that Ahab was undone by his obsession, dragged into the depths by his own harpoon, which he darted into the white whale's flank, while Egon has no intention of living through his ordeal, and achieves his goal of getting vengeance on Bayle. Through the help of our Tarnished, we're able to subvert the expectation of Egon's failure, and give him that final bit of closure before breathing his last. Egon is able to be at peace, tormented no longer by his hunger, or the fact that Bayle is still out there, causing chaos across the land. He dies a true Drake warrior, broken yes, but a Drake warrior who is able to see the ultimate mission of their order through till the end. From humble beginnings, he rose to take his place as one of the greatest Drake Knights to ever live. Thank you for joining us for the last in our 3-part series on Bayle, Florisax, and Egon. Why do you think Egon was never granted his own set of Drake Knight armor? Where did he and Bayle first meet on the battlefield? Did you let him finish off Bayle, allowing his final harpoon to fly true? Should they have had Egon yell, "From hell's heart I stab at thee," or would that have been too on the nose? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and set notifications to all so you never miss out on any of our lore dives. We look forward to seeing you again for more Elden Lore.